The Daily Code Snippet. Web Access Pro. First, we're going to look at the original site so that you have a comparison of where we were and where we are now. So you can see that there are several accessibility errors, the majority being the issues of duplicate IDs and color contrast issues. So there's a total of almost 400 errors on the site that need remediation. And if we look at some of the details, we see that there are issues with ARIA roles, with adding clarification to buttons so that they let a user know where they're going. And as we said, color contrast areas where the color, the difference between the text color and the background is not enough contrast so that people of low vision can discern the text. So this is an important error to fix. And then we have the issue that we've been discussing regarding the JavaScript on our site where our IDs are being used more than once. And so that generally causes an error. There's an empty heading that needs to be removed, and there are issues with ARIA landmarks so that we are letting a user know what each landmark section does so that they understand that that function when they are perusing a site that has different sections on a page. And then there's also another area of our slider where links don't have information letting the user know where they're going if they click on those links. And the meta viewport errors because we're not allowing zooming on mobile devices, and that is an issue for people, again, who have vision issues. And there's an issue here with the next and previous buttons on the slider where you're not able to focus on that element, and that's a problem with people who use assistive devices to navigate through a site, and they have to be able to focus on an element so that it is able to be manipulated. And then again, region has to do with ARIA landmarks, and that we need to kind of appropriate landmarks and make sure the content is enclosed in a proper landmark. Those are the main errors that we've seen on this site. And if we were to go to one of the individual pages, the individual pages tend to have similar code, so the errors that we find will likely be seen from one page to another. And so we would just need to fix one page and generally copy it into the other pages. And we see the majority, again, are duplicate IDs and color contrast issues. We forgot to declare our language on these pages, so we need to make sure that we declare our language to be English on the page. And there are issues with duplicate landmarks, and that we need to make our landmarks clear and unique. And certain links are not noted to where they're going. And again, the meta viewport error. So basically similar errors on each of the individual pages. And then we are going to eventually turn to our blog. Now the blog is maintained on WordPress, so it's built in a different way. But we have to also then go into the code of the WordPress to fix things. And again, we have color contrast issues and ARIA landmark issues. So those are the main things that we're seeing on the original site that we've been seeking to fix over the last couple of sessions. And between the last session and today, I took the time to look at some of the minor errors and fix those. And I also had a discussion with the client regarding the issue with changing the color contrast, the colors because of that issue. And he wasn't happy with the level of differentiation between the title and the descriptive text. So you can see here there's because this color is very light, there's a strong contrast between the titles and the descriptive text. And so that's something that he wanted to be carried over to the new site that's accessible. But when we made everything the dark gray color, then there really wasn't enough difference between the title and the description. So we had a discussion about that, and he asked about whether it was possible to adjust the weight of the type. So in this version, we're basically using Helvetica in the normal or Roman weight, and so his question was, if we have this darker color, if we make the description text of a lighter weight as compared to the title, would that be enough contrast? And would that also be okay from an accessibility standpoint? And so we did conduct a test to figure this out, and it turned out it was fine. And so we had to purchase new licenses to add a light version of this Helvetica so that we can put it into our site. And so what you're going to see when we move to the new site is that we have the description text in a dark gray color in the light weight, and we have the titles in the Roman or normal weight and also in a black color, so that we have a better contrast between these two things, but we still have enough contrast for someone who has low vision. So here we are in the accessible version of the website, and so we've been adjusting the code. So like I said, I've been working on a lot of the minor errors in addition to some of the things that we went over in previous videos. And so the remaining issues are the duplicate IDs, but these are all related to the JavaScript that we were unable to change to classes that we went over in a previous video. So this is something that I'm going to have to figure out a JavaScript fix, but otherwise, the rest of the duplicate IDs have been taken care of. The other remaining one is this issue with the slider has text in it. And the reason this gets flagged as being duplicated is because we have the randomizer with the 5 different sliders. So it's kind of in our code multiple times because of that randomizer. So that's another issue if I can adjust that JavaScript. So these are both a little bit beyond the HTML, CSS. We have to figure out either a new JavaScript or some other way to fix this issue with these duplicate IDs. But we've been very successful in changing the rest of the things that were showing up as errors. The main issue was the color contrast, and the other minor thing that's showing up is that for some reason it's reading that I have more than one banner landmark. So a website is only supposed to have one banner landmark, and it's reading 2. And what is typically considered a banner is what contains your logo and your navigation. And for some reason, even though I've looked at this code and I really only have one element, the header, named as a banner, it's being flagged as an issue. So that's one other thing to go over. So now from close to 400 errors that we had in our previous version of the site, we only have now the 122, of which all of those have to do with JavaScript, which is a little bit beyond the HTML and CSS that we discussed in this series of videos. So we've done a good job in identifying the majority of the errors that had to do with color contrast, ARIA labels, ARIA landmarks, making sure our links and buttons have proper information that tells the user where they're going if that link is clicked. And we really didn't have to deal with alternative text issues because I had already put alternative text on all my photographs. So we've done a pretty good job in fixing this website using our Web Access Pro. And if we go to one of the client pages and do another check, it's again the issue with the duplicate banner. So because this header element or navigation is carried over to the rest of the pages, because there's an issue with that, it's being brought over. But we see that really, other than that issue with the header and the unique landmark, everything else has been corrected. And we also took the time to adjust our icons so that they also have that darker color. So we no longer have icons with the lighter color that didn't have enough color contrast. This particular page has more than one project that's featured, they're related. So it has a video component. This was being flagged originally as having an object that didn't have proper alternative text. But when I looked at the code, it was from previously when, if the browser wasn't recognizing more modern video formats, it would pull up a Flash video version. And since Flash is no longer supported, I was able to just delete that code out. We didn't really need to use an object at that point. We're just using HTML5 video. And so that means the video element and presenting sources of the video in various formats. So we have MP4, WebM, and Audtheora, so that we can see our video in multiple types of browsers. So that was a fix that we had to make. And then this particular client has multiple projects, so this section also appears. Another page that we had to spend some time on was the USPS page, because there were, again, multiple projects on these pages. And just to make sure that each of these sections had a unique ARIA landmark, and so we weren't going to be flagged for having duplicate IDs. So we took the time to give each section here on this page a unique ARIA landmark that's able to identify to someone using a screen reader what each section is about. So each section is about a different stamp. And so we were able to tell the browser, and therefore anyone using a screen reader, what each section is about, so they can navigate to the section they want to see. So if they're looking for a particular stamp, they can navigate directly to that area, as opposed to having to go through all of them to figure out where the item they want to look at is. And this also has a longer section of additional projects that aren't displayed. And so if we look at our analysis, you can see, again, it's just the issue with the header navigation that's being flagged. And if we just go to a regular page, something that just has one featured project, we can do a test. And you see it's that same issue. So in this case, there's a section below that doesn't have any additional projects. And so we've actually marked that section as telling the user that there's no additional projects. We also had to add labels to our indicators here that tell the user that they can navigate to a previous project or the next project from this page. And that there's a toggle here to highlight the description that can be turned on and off. We do still have to do a little bit of testing of the site, since we did alter the code to make sure everything works properly on mobile. We want to make sure that that's still working after changing our code. But, you know, it's taken about, this is our 5th video about fixing this site with our Web Access Pro. So basically 5 days of work to affix this site from a state of having close to 400 errors to about 125 on the index page that have to do with JavaScript, but on the other pages, basically only 2. And you know, if we can figure out why it's being flagged, that there's 2 banner elements, that will be an easy fix. But that's just the issue of that's being flagged there, that we have to figure out why it's sensing that when I look at the code, I only see that I've named 1 banner. So something is happening with our navigation, so we have to figure that out. But other than that, you know, we've provided about 1,775 features for accessibility for the people that come to this site. So we've really tried to make it a site that will work for them, even though this is an image-heavy site, which is often a difficult issue for accessibility, because we have a lot of images, and people who use screen readers or unable to see our images would typically have, a lot more difficulty in navigating a site like this. But because we've taken the time to put our alternative text, to put links and labels on our links and other navigational elements so that they know where they're going, and we've, done what we can to make sure that this is an accessible website. Presented by Designers Learn Code.